Hi everyone, so this video is all about pre-ride daily checks, and I'm making this video off the suggestion of somebody who mentioned this to me, I think last week or the week before, and suggested that I do this to help benefit predominantly newer riders, people that are just getting into bikes. Maybe you've got your first bike and you're not sure, maybe you're brand new to biking and you're not sure what to check before each ride. So I'll talk about some basic daily checks, and then I'll also talk about some things that you might check every week or every couple of weeks as well. What I'll say first and foremost is, folks, the importance of pre-ride checks can never really be ever underestimated. The last thing you would want to do is jump on your bike, in the morning. Maybe you haven't been on it for a few days. You jump on your bike, you get half a mile down the road and you discover there's a little problem. And it's a little niggly problem, but it's a problem that stops your ride, when it could have been avoided by just doing a very simple check and, fixing something or getting it sorted before your ride. So it is really important. It doesn't matter how long you've been biking as well. And it's good, I guess, to even for seasoned riders to sometimes be reminded of the basics. So some of you will know all of this already, but this will apply to some people. So this is what I normally do. Now, some of you might do some different things, some of you might do things in different order, some of you might disagree with what I say, and that's okay, but this is just pretty much what I do. So the first thing that I'll do before a ride is I'll check my tyre pressures. And the reason that I do that first is, well, tyre pressures need to be checked cold. You should always check your cold pressures, so before a ride. And as a starting point, have a look at your bike's user manual, because your bike's user manual will give you the recommended tyre pressures. Now, those recommended tyre pressures are quite vague, because when a bike manufacturer builds a bike and they put some tyres on there, they need to cater for any rider in any conditions, any riding style, etc. So it's a good starting point. So for example, Honda recommend 42 psi on the rear and 36 psi on the front for me. This time of year I will run slightly lower pressures because obviously they're going to build more heat more quickly because of the higher temperatures, but it's a good starting point. So use your bike's manufacturer's tire pressure recommendations as a starting point, and you can play around a little bit. You can drop them a little bit to suit your style, increase them a little bit if you're carrying a pillion, and so on and so forth. That's a whole other video to talk about tire pressures. But check your tire pressures cold. What I use to check my tire pressures is I've got a USB rechargeable tire inflator. So you just charge this up, and then you'll get, you can check your tire pressures and adjust them loads of times in between charges. And it just means that you don't have to take your bike to a garage to do it, and you don't have to push your bike next to the car to use one of those plug-in inflators. So these are really good. But what I always do is I don't trust the digital readout on this on these tire inflators. So I always double check the pressure with another tire pressure monitor. To give an example, if I set my rear tire at 40 psi and inflate it with this, it'll stop at 40 psi. I then check it with this one and it's at something like 38.5 or 39. So there is going to be a difference. So you can never really trust the calibration of these. Even better would be the manual tire pressure monitors, the ones that sort of pop out on a stick when they read the pressure, but I don't have one of those. But I normally go by this. I use this to inflate it, and then I double check the pressures with this. Once you've done your tire pressures, I'll then have a walk around the bike just to do a quick visual inspection, make sure there's no leaks, make sure there's no oil leaking from the fork seals, for example, make sure there's nothing obvious that shouldn't be there. And also what I've done, and I'll try and position the camera to show you, on most of the major nuts and bolts that have to be torqued up, I've put a little paint mark. So I've got a little paint pen and I've marked that bolt. Once it's been torqued up, I mark it. And then what that allows me to do is quickly check that mark, and in between rides, if that mark has moved, it tells me that the bolt has spun or it's come loose. So it's a very, very quick way of identifying any bolts that might have worked its way loose. So if I just zoom in on my axle nut, you can see the little orange mark there, and there's a little orange mark on that block, and they line up. So very, very quickly I can check visually if that axle nut has come loose or not. Now the chances of a bolt coming loose when it's been torqued up correctly is very, very slim, but it can happen. A friend of mine, he's got a Kawasaki Z1000SX, and the whole subframe came loose, even though apparently it was torqued up at the dealership. So it can happen, you know, especially high performance bikes that rev quite high. There's a lot of vibration that can go through the frame and all the parts and all the components. So it is not uncommon for a bolt to work its way loose every now and again. So I mark my axle bolt, as you've just seen, my subframe bolts, my brake caliper bolts, you know, some of the major really important ones. I'll mark it, and it just allows me to very quickly check to make sure they're still tight and secure. And then, like I say, just making sure that there's no leaks or anything, making sure there's no nails in the tire, anything like that. Once that visual check is done, I'll then check the lights. So turn the ignition on, and then what that also does is gives me a chance to check that the fuel pump is working. So those of you that have a bike with fuel injection will know that when you turn the ignition on, you can hear the whiz of the fuel pump as it's priming itself. If you don't hear that whiz of the fuel pump, then it could be that your kill switch is turned off. If your kill switch is turned on and that fuel pump noise doesn't happen, then it could indicate a problem with the kill switch. It might indicate a problem with the fuel pump, but quite often on a bike you can get a little bit dirt or grime inside the kill switch contacts. So a little bit of WD-40, flick your kill switch on and off a few times is quite common, and that will sort that problem out. So turn the ignition on, check the lights. If you're doing this on your own, it's quite easy to check all the lights on a bike, because you can stand at the front of the bike, turn your indicators on, put your hand over the back of the bike, and then you can see the reflection of the indicators and the brake light in your hand. And then obviously check things like your main beam from the main beam switch and from the passing switch, and make sure that's all working, check your number plate light and so on. And yeah, so basically check all your lights, make sure everything looks good, and then once that's done, you can run the bike up and then start to sort of get on your way. Now that's the very, very basic daily checks. What you might also check every sort of week or every couple of weeks is things like your chain tension. Your chain will come loose over time. That's just what a chain does. So it's worth every now and again. You don't necessarily have to do it every single day, and just a quick visual check of the chain to make sure there's no kinks in it. It should be sufficient each day. But every week or every couple of weeks, depending on how often you ride, it's worth checking your chain tension to make sure it stays within the manufacturer's recommendations. Checking your brake fluid levels as well. And actually going back to the daily checks, it's worth, you know, when you do sort of start your bike up, just pump that front brake a little bit, make sure you got pressure in your front brake. You know, there's nothing wrong with just checking that. And then as you start to ride off, just make sure you double check again, you've still got brake pressure front and rear. Also, sticking back with the daily checks, when you are checking your lights, check the brake light from your front brake, and check the brake light from your rear brake as well. So what else can you check sort of every now and again, every couple of weeks or so? You know, the condition of your brake pads. Brake pads is one of the main consumables on a bike, so making sure that your brake pads aren't below about 2 mil, you know, and again depending on the bike, but I'd always say that when your brake pad gets to about 2 mil or less, it's time to think about changing them. And then, yeah, other than that, you know, that should be it really for, you know, the sort of basic checks that you could do. And what I'd add to that as well is like cleaning your bike regularly. So those that know me, and those that follow the channel might already know that I clean my bike religiously. But one of the benefits of cleaning your bike regularly is that you get to spot little things that might then later become bigger problems before they become bigger problems. So you can deal with them, because as you're cleaning the bike, you're paying attention to the bike. Oil level as well. My bike is known for burning through a fair bit of oil, so I'll check my oil level every few hundred miles. Again, it's easier if your bike has got the little sight glass where you can check your oil. Just make sure your bike is upright, not on its side stand when you do that. And then also trying to keep an eye on the condition of your oil. If your oil looks a bit cloudy, a bit milky, then that could indicate a problem. So yeah, you can go as in depth as you want with these checks really. And like I say, refer to your user manual as well. Your user manual should highlight daily checks and regular checks that you can do. The forums online, platforms like TikTok and YouTube are also really good for learning what to look out for on bikes in general, but also learning what to look out for on very particular bikes. Not every bike is known for its common problems. So whatever bike you've got, do a bit of research, find out what the common problems might be, and then just pay attention to those things as well. Because like I say, it's much better to spot a problem early and then deal with it, rather than wait till it develops into a bigger problem. So yeah, I think that's pretty much it. So in summary, tire pressures, lights, front brake pressure, rear brake pressure, make sure you've got that. Visual check of everything, make sure that everything's tight and torqued up, and again, as a top tip, little paint marks to once your bolts are torqued up just makes life a little bit easier. And then as you start riding, double check you got full brake pressure. And then every couple of weeks, things like chain and brake fluid levels and oil and so on. And yeah, just be a little bit disciplined and pay attention to your bike, because the more you look after it, then the longer you can enjoy it for. So hopefully that has covered a few useful bits. Like I say, many of you will already know this, so I'm not trying to insult anyone's intelligence, but for some of you who might be newer riders, new to biking, you might find this a little bit useful. But like always, folks, if anybody's got any particular questions, then just get in touch with me and I'll do my best to answer. But for now, stay safe and have fun.